Today's lesson is called Coral Reefs, Keeping Our Oceans Colorful. Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff.
And I'm Roger. Welcome to another edition of our program. Today's topic is all about coral reefs, and we're trying to keep our oceans colorful. I guess because coral reefs are colorful, so as long as the coral reefs are there, the oceans will continue to have lots of colors.
There you go. As long as there are coral reefs out there, not only will the ocean floor be colorful, but there will also be plenty of ocean life out there as well. Yes, coral reefs are very important for ocean ecosystems. Without those coral reefs, it is very difficult for a lot of fish and other types of sea life, sea animals and sea critters to survive. That's where they get their food. That's where they shelter themselves, so on and so forth. Yes, coral reefs are super important for ocean life, and they're also keeping the oceans colorful. How about that? All right, everyone, let's get started with our lesson. Let's go ahead and take a short break. But when we come back, we are going to be discussing the first part of our article on coral.
Coral reefs, keeping our oceans colorful. According to the International Coral Reef Initiative, this year is the third International Year of the Reef. It's time to start thinking about how to protect our coral reefs before it's too late. Even though you may know them for their colorful beauty, there is so much more to them.
大家好，首先我们看到的单字是 coral， 这个字当作形容词，代表珊瑚的意思。所以我们可以说 The fish live in the coral reefs under the sea. 鱼居住在海底的珊瑚礁中。例句中的 coral reef 是珊瑚礁的意思，而 reef 是指暗礁。那我们可以说You need to sail the boat carefully and make sure you don't hit the reef. 你要小心的开船，以确保不会触礁。
Okay, let's get to it, everybody. Let's talk about the first part of our lesson. Of course, the subject for today is all about coral reefs. We all know what coral is. A reef, of course, is a large structure under the ocean where the coral live. And, of course, we need to take good care of our coral reefs or else the oceans will no longer be so colorful. So here, in the first paragraph, it says, according to the International Coral Reef Initiative, this year is the third international year of the reef. Okay, so that's according to this organization, International Coral Reef Initiative, which I believe is some kind of organization, maybe a non-government organization, a non-profit organization that is trying to help protect the coral reefs in the world.
That sounds right to me. Why? Because this is an international initiative, an international organization that has a very, very specific thing that it wants to do or to achieve. They want people, this initiative wants people to pay attention to coral reefs and to keep them safe. And I guess that's why they have these things called the International Year of the Reef. And get this, they haven't had one or two of these things. This is the third, count 'em, third International Year of the Reef. Anyways, the next sentence goes on and continues what we were talking about before. It says, it's time to start thinking about how to protect our coral reefs before it's too late. So there you have it. The International Coral Reef Initiative loves coral and wants other people to love coral reefs just as much. And they want people to start thinking about and then also protecting coral reefs before it's too late and before these coral reefs start dying out the world over.
It's a good idea. Coral reefs, of course, are very important for the ocean ecosystem, which we'll get to in just a couple of seconds. But again, hey, this year is the third time that we're having the International Year of the Reef to call attention to this particular problem. Now, it's time to start thinking about protecting those coral reefs, as you said, before it's too late. And even though you may know them for their colorful beauty, there is so much more to them. So you've probably seen people posting videos on Facebook or whatever about somebody scuba diving next to coral reefs, and there are lots of colorful fish, and the coral itself is very colorful. So you might think, okay, I know what a coral reef is. It's something with a lot of fish and a lot of underwater plants, and it's very colorful. Okay, well, that's all very true, but according to this sentence, there is so much more to them. We have so much more to learn about coral reefs in the world.
Well, there you go. All right, everyone. Now, Roger just mentioned how sometimes coral reefs have plants on them, seaweeds and plant-like structures attached to them and connected to them. And for that reason, people kind of think of coral reefs as being underwater gardens filled with plants. But we're going to learn that coral reefs aren't plants at all. We'll learn all about that right after a break.
Many people think that corals are a type of plant or rock, but they are actually animals. They do look similar to plants, as they attach themselves to the ocean floor permanently. However, unlike plants, they do not make their own food. Instead, most corals have a symbiotic relationship with algae, which helps feed and give them their color. Corals also eat tiny fish and marine organisms that they catch.
第二部分我们看到的单字是形容词 symbiotic， 也可以念成 symbiotic， 代表共生的意思。例如 There is a symbiotic relationship between clownfish and sea anemone. 小丑鱼和海葵之间有着共生的关系。再来我们看到的单字是 alga， 这个名词是水藻或是藻类的意思，它的复数形态是 algae。例如 The pond appears green because it is filled with algae. 这个池塘看起来绿绿的，是因为里面充满着藻类。除此之外，我们也可以说 There are some algae which we can eat in our daily lives. 有一些藻类是日常生活中我们能食用的。接下来我们看到的单字是 organism， 这个字当作名词，它有生物体或是有机体的意思。所以我们可以说 Human beings are very complex organisms that scientists still don't fully understand. 人类是非常复杂的生物体，以至于科学家仍无法彻底的了解。或者也可以说 Scientists want to know if there are any living organisms on Mars. 科学家想要知道在火星上是否存有任何生物体。另外，这个字去掉字尾 ism 就会变成名词 organ， 指器官、脏器的意思。来看个例句 Many Westerners will eat meat, but won't eat organs. 许多西方人吃肉，但不吃内脏。
Okay, it's time now to talk about the second part of today's lesson. Remember, the subject for today is coral reefs, and in the first part of our lesson, we found out that indeed, 2018, this year, is yet another international year of the reefs, so we need to be thinking about those coral reefs and how to protect them before it's too late. Now, here in the next part of our lesson, it begins by saying, many people think that corals are a type of plant or rock, but they are actually animals. Ooh, I did not know that. I thought, yes, they were a kind of rock or something, or maybe a kind of living rock, or maybe a plant that just happens to get really hard. In this particular sentence, though, we are told that they're actually animals. Maybe not an animal like a rabbit or a squirrel or a skunk or something like that, but it's an animal, or they are animals nevertheless.
Yes, coral reefs might look like underwater gardens, or might look like there are a lot of underwater plants or sea plants attached to them, but coral reefs aren't plants. And even though coral reefs might look rocky, they're not rocks either. Coral reefs are actually animals. Anyways, our article continues. It says they do look similar to plants as they attach themselves to the ocean floor permanently, the same way that a plant grows out of the ground and its roots are below the surface of the ground there, kind of fixing that plant in one place permanently. Anyways, before we move on, we've got two words to talk about, and one of these words is the word permanently. It's an adverb. Okay, permanently, the adverb means in a way that is permanent, not temporary, lasting for a really long time, maybe forever. Like around the corner in my neighborhood, a sad sign went up in front of one of the buildings there. There used to be a restaurant there, but now the sign says, "We've gone out of business permanently." So this business is not going to open up again. They might have thought about that, but they've decided against it. This place is going to stay closed forever or permanently. Further, it says here that these plants attach themselves to the ocean floor. Anyways, this is the verb attach. Let's talk about it right now. If you attach to something, you connect yourself to that other things. If you attach one thing to another thing, you stick these things together. You join these two things together, so on, so forth. I was watching a nature documentary about the deep seas the other night. Sometimes very large fish like marlin and sharks, and then other large mammals like whales. They have little fish that stick to their bellies called remora or sucker fish. Yes, remora or sucker fish attach themselves to the undersides of large ocean animals.
And of course, the coral attach themselves to the ocean floor, not just temporarily, but permanently. They're going to stay there as long as they can. Now, however, it goes on to say here in the next sentence, unlike plants, they do not make their own food. So plants, if you know about plants that grow in the soil, I guess they can make their own food. They can feed themselves. So unlike plants, different from plants, they don't make their own food. So I guess that means that coral is slightly different from plants. In fact, they aren't plants at all. Remember, we're saying that corals are animals.
They're animals, not plants. If you put a plant in the sunshine, that plant can make its own food. Corals can't do this, okay? It says here instead, most corals have a symbiotic relationship with algae, which help feed and give them their color. How about that? So they're in a very interesting symbiotic relationship. They depend on one another. One takes care of the other. They live together, and they both benefit from this relationship. And this is an interesting fact. I had no idea at all that, one, corals were animals, two, that they couldn't make their own food, and now three, that they rely on algae.
Right, so they have this mutually beneficial relationship with algae in the ocean. One hand washes the other, as we say. They have this symbiotic relationship. Algae gets something from the coral, and coral gets something from the algae. And, of course, the algae help feed the coral and give them their color. The corals here receive their color from the algae, and algae, of course, is a kind of simple plant that lives in the ocean or sometimes in lakes and rivers.
There you go. There's this symbiotic relationship with algae, and through this relationship, coral gets food, and it also gets its color. Pretty cool. Now, we've got one more sentence to read before we take a break. It says, corals also eat tiny fish and marine organisms that they catch. So that's not very plant-like, is it? Sometimes I know there are plants called the Venus flytrap that can eat animals, but that's pretty rare, okay? Most times plants make their own food by way of a process called photosynthesis, and that's just a fancy word that describes how plants make food from sunshine. Anyways, corals here, yes, not only do they rely on algae, but they also eat. They eat fish and other marine organisms that they catch. So maybe corals, we can now call them not only animals, but predators as well. How cool. Anyways, before we take a break, let's talk about the word marine. It's an adjective. The word marine describes something that is related to the ocean. A marine animal lives in the ocean. A marine organism lives in a sea or in an ocean or something like that. A marine biologist is a biologist who studies things that live in oceans. I think you guys get the idea.
You certainly do. You can study marine biology at many universities here in Taiwan. So, of course, those corals eat tiny fish, and they also eat marine organisms or things that live in the sea, and they can catch them somehow. Okay, let's now move on to the final part of our lesson. We will listen to it first.
Individual corals are called polyps and are typically 1 to 30 millimeters wide. They are classified as either soft or hard. It's the latter kind that produces a rock-like outer shell which attaches to rocks or other polyps. As more and more of them attach to one another, they form a coral reef. The largest of these is the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, which is more than 2,300 kilometers long.
今天最后一个单字，我们看到的是 millimeter。这个名词有毫米的意思。例如，最新机型的智慧型手机厚度小于5毫米。英文可以这么说 ：The latest smartphone model is less than 5 millimeters thick。顺便补充一下，比毫米还要大的单位是公分，英文是 centimeter，C-E-N-T-I-M-E-T-E-R。所以我们可以说 Sarah is 3 centimeters taller than her mother。Sarah 比她的妈妈高3公分。
Okay, more on coral, everyone. Get this. Individual corals are called polyps and are typically 1 to 30 millimeters wide, which makes you think, what type of fish and marine organisms can corals catch? These things they're catching and eating must be pretty small because an individual coral itself is quite small. They're typically 1 to 30 millimeters wide. By the way, there are 1,000 millimeters in a meter, so a millimeter is a very small unit of measure, or it's a unit of measure for very small things. Anyways, at the beginning of this sentence, we have the word individual. We're talking about individual corals. Now, when we're using this word individual, we're making it clear that we're talking about a single coral, a coral alone, a coral that isn't a part of something else, even though that coral is probably still part of a coral reef.
Exactly. There are probably too many of them to count, but they are individual. They are separate. They are single units here, and they're called polyps. And we talked about the range of size there, 1 to 30 millimeters in width. Now, they are classified as either soft or hard. So we're classifying them. We're putting them in different categories here. They can either be soft polyps or soft corals, or hard polyps or hard corals.
There you go. And it says here that they are classified as such. And this phrase, to be classified as or to classify as, it comes from the verb classify. If you classify something, or if you classify something as being something, you're just organizing this thing by dividing it into orderly groups.
Indeed, that's what it means, all right. So we talked about soft or hard corals. So it's the latter kind, which means the one we mentioned later, the hard coral. It's the latter kind that produces a rock-like outer shell which attaches to rocks or other polyps. So the soft ones will not be hard like a rock, but the hard ones will be hard like a rock, and they attach to rocks or they attach to other polyps. They stick to them.
And as more and more of them attach to one another, they form a coral reef. So a single individual coral called a polyp doesn't really a reef make. You have to have many coral pieces, or polyps, I should say, together to form a reef. Otherwise, you just have a single, very tiny, tiny organism. But put a bunch of them together, you have super big structures. Yes, the largest of these coral reefs is the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, which is more than 2,300 kilometers long.
That's pretty long, and no wonder lots of people want to travel to Australia to learn how to scuba dive so that they can go check out the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. It truly is amazing, and it's really, really long. And we'll continue talking about coral reefs in our next program, but before we end today's program, we need to hear from the Chinese teacher one more time.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天文法重点。课文第3部分提到，单独的珊瑚又称为珊瑚虫，它们通常有1到30毫米宽。那读到这部分的第2句， They are classified as either soft or hard。 它们被分类为软珊瑚和硬珊瑚。那句子里面的动词 classify 表示分类、归类，后面常常搭配 as。Classify A as B 就表示把 A归类成 B， 那它的句型就是 classify 加上某人或某事物加 as 加上名词。那这个用法也常常是以被动语态 somebody or something be classified as 再加名词来表达。例如 The movie is classified as a rom-com。 这部电影被归类为爱情喜剧。好，那刚刚例句里面这个 rom-com 就是指 romantic comedy，浪漫爱情喜剧，是我爱看的电影。另外要帮同学们补充 either or 或者是 either or 的用法。 either or 它是配对连接词，必须连接对等的字、词或是句子。那么 either A or B 就表示不是 A 就是 B。 举例来说， He is either unwilling or unable to do it。他不是不愿意做，就是没办法做。那要特别注意的是，以 either A or B 来连接主词的时候，动词必须配合最靠近的主词，也就是要跟这个 B 这个主词一致。举例来说， Either Sarah or I am going to pick you up tomorrow。 明天不是 Sarah 去接你，就是我会去接你。那例句里面最靠近动词的主词是 I， 所以后面搭配的 be 动词用 am。 好，接着读到课文下一句， It's the latter kind that produces a rock-like outer shell which attaches to rocks or other polyps。 后者会生成像岩石的外壳，依附在岩石或其他珊瑚虫上。那句子里面的 latter 是形容词，形容后面的或是后者的。相反的 former 是形容前任的、之前的。那我们可以用 the former 来表达两者之中的前者， the latter 来表达两者之中的后者。好，那我们接着是要介绍分列句的用法。分列句的句型是 it is 或是 it was 加上你要强调的部分，再加 that， 再加其他的部分。也就是说，当我们要强调句子的某个部分时，你可以用这个句型把要强调的部分摆在 it is 跟 that 之间，或者是 it was 跟 that 之间。然后要强调的部分可以是你原本句中的主词啊、受词、地点、时间等等。然后你再把句子剩下的部分都丢到 that 的后面。举例来说， His rude remarks upset me。 他那些无理的评论惹到我了，让我很不高兴。那如果我要用分列句来改写，就会写作 It was his rude remarks that upset me。 那这就是用来强调，就是他那些无理的评论惹到我了。好，那我们回头来看课文的句子，原本它可以写作 The latter kind produces a rock-like outer shell。 那它把要强调的部分 the latter kind 摆在 it is 跟 that 之间，用来表达说是后者，也就是硬珊瑚会生成像岩石的外壳。好，以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天的单字吧。
Coral. Please remember not to touch the coral reefs when you go diving. Attach. Did you not see the document I attached to the email? Permanently. Alex was permanently banned from the restaurant because of his terrible behavior. Marine. Tessa graduated from college with a degree in marine biology.
Individual. Each individual part must work perfectly in order for this machine to operate.
Okay, everyone. With that, today's article is now complete. But, as always, we sure hope that you guys have enjoyed reading along with us. Anyways, I'm Jeff.
I am Roger.
See you next time.